I'm going to start this story right where everything shattered, because honestly, I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of my mother's voice when she dropped the bomb, or the sickening smugness on my sister's face that went with it. I had just come home from a double shift at the crappy coffee shop I was working at to save up for my senior year tuition, exhausted, smelling like stale espresso and regret, and my mom called a family meeting in the living room. That itself was a bad sign. It was when my sister Clara walked in wearing a new dress and that look, the one she gets when she thinks she's won the lottery without buying a ticket, that I knew something deeply awful was about to happen. My mom cleared her throat, avoiding my eyes, fidgeting with the remote. And then she finally got the words out, just like ripping off a band. "Dade, we used your college fund for your sister's IVF." It hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I felt the blood drain from my face. Clara, my beautiful Fertilin, her own, mind older sister, just smiled, a soft, patronizing, almost pitying smile, and said, "You'll understand someday, Ella. This is bigger than a degree. Bigger than a degree, bigger than my entire future." I just stood there, the silence stretching out until it felt like it would snap me in half. And when I finally found my voice, all the shock, all the betrayal, all the years of feeling like the second best child condensed into one cold, demanding syllable. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just looked my mother dead in the eye and replied one word: refund. And that was the single spark that ignited the bonfire. Everything broke loose. The screaming, the crying, the accusations, it all came out in a torrent. Was I the villain for demanding what was mine, even if it meant snatching away my sister's dream? Tell me, would you have stood there and let them steal your entire future for something they chose? Something they should have planned for themselves? To really understand why that single word, refund, caused such an explosion, you have to know a few things about my family dynamic and this college fund. I'm Ella. I was 22 at the time, and I had been meticulously saving for college since I was practically a child. My parents were good people, mostly, but they were not wealthy. They started a $529 college savings plan for me when I was born, and they made it very clear very early on that this money, my college fund, was sacred. It was for my future, my independence, my path out into the world. My father, bless his financially conservative soul, had worked 2 jobs for years to make sure that fund was well fed and safely invested. He passed away suddenly 3 years ago, and his final words to me, sitting in that sterile hospital room, were a whisper about making sure I used the fund to go to the best school I could get into. He told me it was my ticket, and that he was proud of how hard I was already working. That memory is burned into my mind. After he passed, my mom became the sole custodian of the account, and I trusted her implicitly. The fund, by the time of this horrific confrontation, had grown to a substantial amount, enough to cover 4 years of tuition, books, and a decent chunk of living expenses at the state university I'd been accepted to. I was supposed to start my senior year in the fall. I had my schedule picked out, my housing application approved, my entire future mapped out, built on the solid foundation of that fund. Now let's talk about Clara, my older sister, 5 years my senior. Clara was beautiful, charismatic, and had always been the golden child. Everything she did was a huge deal. Everything she wanted was a priority. She was married to a decent guy, Mark, and they had been trying to conceive for 3 years. It was an emotionally exhausting time for her, and for the whole family, because everything revolved around Clara's fertility journey. Every conversation, every gathering, every decision. She went through various less invasive treatments, and when those failed, the doctors recommended IVF, in vitro fertilization. IVF is notoriously expensive. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars for a single cycle, and most people need multiple cycles. Clara and Mark had health insurance, but it covered almost nothing for fertility treatments. They had a decent income, but they'd also just bought a large house and a new car, because Clara deserved nice things. so they weren't exactly flush with savings. Over the past few months, the pressure had been mounting. Clara was becoming increasingly desperate. She'd call Mom crying almost daily. She would make dramatic posts on social media about the injustice of infertility. My mom, ever the empathetic one, was clearly cracking under the emotional strain of watching her first-born suffer. But I never ever thought it would come to this. My mom would always reassure me, "Your fund is untouchable, honey. Your father made sure of that. Clara will figure it out." I'd been so focused on my classes and my work. I was literally working my fingers to the bone, saving every spare penny I made for my own little extras fund, just to ease the burden on my future self. I hadn't checked the 529 balance in months because why would I? It was mine, it was protected. It was the legacy my father left me. The first IVF cycle was a complete disaster, it failed. Clara was heartbroken, hysterical. She told everyone the universe was punishing her. Mark was distraught. My mother was a mess. They needed to try again, immediately, they said. The doctor had a cancellation, and they could start the second, more aggressive, and even more expensive cycle in 2 weeks. That's when I think the seed of this terrible idea was planted in my mother's mind. They needed another $50,000, and they needed it yesterday. I remember my sister coming over one afternoon when I was home studying. She was unusually sweet, bringing me my favorite takeout, asking about my classes. I should have been suspicious. She started talking very casually about how much she regretted not having a baby sooner, how much she was willing to sacrifice. Then she made a comment that chilled me to the bone. She said, "You know, Mark and I will pay for your school, Ella. We just had a little help right now." I blinked at her. "What are you talking about, Clara? I have my fund." She just smiled, that same patronizing smile, and said, "I know, but yours is liquid. Ours is tied up in assets. Think of it as a very short-term loan, a sisterly favor." I was appalled. "No, absolutely not. This is my college fund. This is for my senior year, Clara. You know Dad said it was sacred." She got defensive immediately. "Oh, stop being dramatic. You'll pay it back eventually, right? And I'll pay you back. But this is life and death. This is a baby. Your education can wait 6 months, a year. Maybe you can take a gap year, right?" I shut her down cold. "The answer is no. I start in 3 months. Find another way." She left in a huff, and I thought that was the end of it. I thought my boundaries were clear. I was wrong. I went back to my life, burying my head in books and work, trusting my mother to protect my interests, to uphold my father's dying wish. And that's when the family meeting happened 3 weeks later. They hadn't asked. They hadn't warned me. They had simply done it. "We used your college fund for your sister's IVF." My mom's words echoed, bouncing off the walls of my perfect planned future, shattering it into a million pieces. "How, Mom? How could you? It's a 529. There are penalties for non-educational withdrawals." I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. My mom wrung her hands. We took a loan against the house, Ella. It was complicated, but we needed collateral. Your fund was the only significant liquid asset in my name that wasn't tied up in retirement accounts. We just used the funds from the account to pay off the immediate loan. We took out $48,000, Ella. The doctor needed the money now. She looked away, a pathetic, defeated figure. And then Clara jumped in, the smugness radiating off her like heat. "It's fine, Ella. You don't have to worry about the logistics. Mom and I handled it. You can just take a year off, work full-time, save up your own money, and then go back. It's a character building experience, and in a year, I'll have a baby, your nephew or niece. And then Mark and I will absolutely pay you back with interest. Don't you see, this is a beautiful thing. You're sacrificing for family, you'll understand someday. This is bigger than a degree." That phrase, "bigger than a degree," was like a red rag to a bull. It invalidated everything I had worked for, everything my father had sacrificed. It reduced my entire life plan to a trivial inconvenience they could sweep aside for their own selfish wants. They had unilaterally decided my future was expendable, and that's when I said it, "Refund." What did you say? My mother asked, her voice tight, suddenly defensive. I said, refund. I repeated, louder this time, the coldness in my voice surprising even me. I want the money back, all of it, $48,000, transferred back into my investment account by the end of the week. Not in a year, not when you feel like it, now. Clara's face went from smug to instantly furious. Are you serious, Ella? You would prioritize a piece of paper over the possibility of your sister having a child? You are so selfish. This is my dream. This is the only chance I have. And this, I swept my hand out, indicating the ghost of my college fund, was my chance, my father's promise. Your dream is not my responsibility. Your dream does not supersede my life. You and Mark bought a house you couldn't afford and a car you didn't need. That was your choice. You are two adults with good jobs. You should have taken out a personal loan, sold one of your assets, or put off treatment until you could afford it. Instead, you stole from me. You stole my future, my independence, and my father's memory. This isn't a family favor, Clara. This is grand larceny, and I want a refund. My mother started to cry. Ella, how can you be so cruel? She's your sister. She's struggling. Family helps family. We'll pay you back, I promise. Just let her have this chance. It's the last one. A loan is something you agree to, I said, my voice shaking with restrained fury. This was theft, and I am not cruel, Mom. I am reacting to being stolen from. I will not put my entire life on hold because you too lack financial foresight and respect for my property. You have 3 options. Option 1, you refund the money by Friday, all $48,000 plus the withdrawal penalties you incurred. Option 2, I file a police report for theft and I sue both of you using the paper trail from the 529 account as evidence. The 529 was explicitly designated for educational purposes, and you fraudulently withdrew it. I have the power of attorney paperwork on file, which clearly states the funds are non-transferable for non-educational purposes unless I sign off, which I did not. I was bluffing a little on the exact legal weight, but the threat was enough. And option 3, which I'm giving you out of the sheer audacity of your betrayal. You give me the refund, and you both sign a notarized document stating that you will never ask me for a penny or a favor again, and I walk away, and we have the bare minimum contact for the rest of our lives. Pick one. The silence returned, but this time it was heavy with absolute hostility. My mother looked at me like I was a stranger. Clara was literally shaking with rage. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. You wouldn't sue your own mother and sister over money. You'll ruin us. You'll ruin the chance for a baby. You ruined my life for a gamble, I shot back. The only person ruining anything is the person who stole the money in the first place. You have until Friday. I turned and walked out, grabbing my car keys and my backpack. I drove straight to a friend's place, my head spinning, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I spent the next 2 days in a total fog, fielding frantic, abusive calls from both my mother and Clara. The messages were a relentless barrage of emotional manipulation. How could you do this to your own family? Your father would be ashamed of you. You're being selfish. This is a one-time thing. A baby is a blessing. We love you. We'll pay you back. I simply forwarded the same cold reply to every text and voicemail. Friday, refund, no exceptions. It was during this time that I had to sit down and truly look at the numbers. My financial situation was dire. Without that fund, I couldn't go back to school. I couldn't get student loans easily because I was still technically a dependent on my mom's tax filings, and she wouldn't co-sign for a private loan. Even if I took a gap year, I'd have to work full time just to replace what they stole, which meant delaying my degree by at least 2 years, maybe more, and the cost of tuition would only increase. I realized the true cost of their little loan was not just $48,000. It was years of my life, my financial independence, and the career path I had worked so hard to forge. I started to seriously research the legal ramifications, contacting a student legal aid service for an initial consultation, preparing myself for a war. So that's the situation I was in. I was homeless, sleeping on my friend's couch, looking at a shattered future, staring down the barrel of a lawsuit against my own mother and sister. The people who were supposed to love and protect me, all because they put their selfish desire for a child above my established, concrete future. I had to make a choice: be the good, understanding sister who sacrifices everything and takes a massive, lifelong financial and professional hit on the vague promise of repayment, or become the heartless villain who demands justice and gets her life back. Before I tell you what happened next, what I did that finally made everything break loose for good, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it go for the sake of family? Or would you have pressed the nuclear button and demanded the refund? Friday morning arrived, and I hadn't heard a word about the money. I called the lawyer I had consulted with and told him to have the official letter of intent to sue drafted and ready to send at 5 p.m. I felt sick, but also incredibly resolute. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for respect and for my right to an independent life. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. It was Mark, Clara's husband. His voice was strained, completely devoid of his usual good-natured charm. He wasn't yelling, he was defeated. "Ella, listen to me," he said, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of genuine remorse from their side. "Clara and your mom, they told me what they did. They only told me yesterday. They were hoping I wouldn't find out until after the retrieval. I'm so sorry, Ella. I am ashamed of both of them, and I am sick about what this is doing to you." I stayed silent, letting him talk. "We don't have $48,000 liquid," he continued, his voice cracking. "We have maybe $10,000 in our emergency fund. That house we bought, it's stretched us thin. We have massive equity, but we can't pull that out by 5 p.m. We can't get a loan that fast. The IVF clinic requires payment up front. We already paid them. The money is gone." "Then you refund it from the clinic," I stated flatly. "You cancel the procedure. You tell them you're delaying. Get the refund for the unused service. I don't care about the cancellation fee. I just need my principal back." Mark sighed, a long, weary sound. That's not possible. They did the egg retrieval this morning. Clara is in recovery right now. The procedure is in progress. The money has been transferred to the lab. Anesthesiologist, the hospital. It's been dispersed. They are not going to refund a procedure that's already underway." The climax of the story had arrived, and it was devastatingly final. My money was gone, sunk into a high-risk, non-refundable medical procedure. There was no getting it back quickly. My future was already mortgaged to my sister's uterine hopes. "You have two options, Mark," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You either refund my money by the close of business today, or I sue you, Clara, and my mother. I will drag all three of your names through the mud, and I will freeze every financial asset you collectively own. I will demand the sale of your new house to cover the debt. Do you understand? I am not going to be homeless and degree less because of your family's negligence." Mark's voice was barely a whisper. "Ella, please, don't do this. Give us 6 months. I'll take on a second job. We'll find a way. The moment you stole the money, you forfeited the right to negotiate the terms," I replied, and I hung up the phone. I sent the text to my lawyer. "Send the letter, now." The moment the legal letter arrived at their house via certified mail, which I had the lawyer send to Clara's address, as she was the primary beneficiary of the theft, all hell truly broke loose. The letter outlined the fraudulent conversion of funds, the clear intent to use the money for a non-educational purpose, and demanded repayment in full, including punitive damages, within 10 business days, or the lawsuit would be filed. My mother called me, screaming, hysterical, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "You did it. You filed on your own sister. She's having the embryo transfer tomorrow. You're trying to financially ruin her right before the most important day of her life. You are a monster, Ella. A cold, selfish monster. Your father would be ashamed." I cut her off. Don't bring Dad into this. He was the one who protected that fund, Mom. You betrayed him. You made this decision. You are the one who is ashamed of nothing. You put your own comfort and your daughter's desire before your other daughter's entire future. You created this monster. Now you get to deal with it. The real confrontation came that evening. I went to my old house to pick up some more clothes, and I found Clara and Mark there, waiting for me. Clara looked pale and furious, still recovering from the retrieval. "You're pathetic, Ella," she spat venomously. "This is nothing but jealousy. You're jealous I'm going to have a baby, and you're still a student. You just want to punish me. I want my life back, Clara," I said calmly, reaching for my suitcase. "And since you spent it, you have to pay for it. I'm not jealous of your choices. I'm angry that you forced me into yours. You're a grown woman. If you want a baby, you pay for it. You don't steal from your younger sister who has nothing else." Mark, however, surprised me. He stepped between us. "Stop it, Clara. She's right. We were wrong. It was a desperate, stupid thing to do, and I'm ashamed I didn't stop it. Ella, please just look at the payment plan I put together. I liquidated my $401K. It's only $15,000 after penalties, but it's a start. I put the house on the market quietly. It'll take 60 days, but with the equity we have, I can guarantee you the rest of the money, plus a full 20% interest for the emotional distress. I promise you, I will get you every penny back. Please just hold off on the lawsuit until the house closes. I need 60 days. I'll start the second job Monday." I looked at Mark, and I saw a man who had finally realized the gravity of his wife's actions and his own passive complicity. He was genuinely begging. He wasn't using emotional manipulation like my sister and mother. He was offering a concrete, though delayed, solution. I paused. The legal battle would be financially and emotionally draining, and it would take months, maybe a year. It would ruin my mother and sister's credit and their financial stability forever. But Mark's offer, while delaying my start date for school, guaranteed a higher return and avoided the public spectacle of a family lawsuit. 60 days, I said finally. "The lawyer will put your offer into a signed, legally binding consent decree, and I'll drop the lawsuit only after that is signed and notarized. I want the $401K money transferred to me within 48 hours. I want proof the house is listed, and a written, detailed repayment plan. If you miss a single deadline, Mark, the lawsuit will proceed, and I will ask the court for the maximum penalty." The aftermath was brutal. Mark stepped up, immediately liquidating the $401K and transferring me the money. It was a massive financial hit for them, but it was the down payment on my life. The house went on the market, and my mother was forced to move into a tiny rental apartment with Clara and Mark. The house sale closed precisely 65 days later, and the remainder of the $48,000 plus the 20% interest, a total of $57,600, was wired into my account. Clara, as predicted, was pregnant. The IVF worked. She had her dream, but she and I haven't spoken since the day I walked out. She views me as the monster who nearly ruined her life, forced her to sell her dream home, and put her husband into debt. She's the victim in her own narrative. My mother is cold and distant, occasionally sending a guilt-ridden text about how I'm missing out on being an aunt. I just delete them. I, however, started my senior year precisely 1 year later than planned, but I started it debt-free, with a much larger emergency fund than I ever anticipated. Thanks to the interest I demanded, I was able to attend a slightly more expensive university in the end, using the extra money. I am thriving. I am independent. I am safe. I chose my future over their desire. My relationship with my family is essentially non-existent, but I finally realized that my peace and my future are worth more than a forced, toxic family loyalty. The one word, refund, wasn't just about money. It was about drawing a line in the sand and saying, "My life is not your resource." I got my refund, and in the process I bought back my self-respect and my independence. I finished my degree this spring, graduating with honors. I got a great job offer right out of school, and I'm moving across the country. I'm finally living the future my father and I planned. I'm not going to be at my niece's first birthday, and I'm okay with that. The price of their dream was the destruction of our relationship, and that's a cost they decided they were willing to pay, not me. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this that prove blood is not always thicker than water. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to know if I was right to demand the sale of their house and the refund in full. I'll see you all in the next story.